Good evening and welcome to All Things Sky Blue, proudly partnered by The Anecdote, the Sky Blue Tavern, and also with Wright Steel Fabrications for all your fabrication needs across the West Midlands and Warwickshire, but predominantly in the Coventry area. Tonight's show was the debate show, which we're going to look back, shall we say, on September's results. Overall, been a pretty disappointing month for the club. The key question tonight, and obviously we welcome comments from everyone listening, is Robins' job on the line? Are you a Robins in or Robins out, or do you think we need to give him more time? Is it too early in the season to judge on the manager and the coach's performance, etc.? So we'll talk about that tonight, and then we'll talk a bit about the games ahead with Preston, obviously this Saturday, and then the midweek away trip to Queen's Park Rangers. And then we'll talk about Luton as well. So joining me tonight, I've got Tiernan and Bert. Tiernan, good evening. How are you doing? You all right?
Good evening, Mark. I'm very well. How are you doing?
Good stuff. Yeah, good. Thanks. Good to have you on. Cameron is on. I know he's had a couple of technical problems. Cameron, can you hear us? Are you well?
Yeah, I can hear you much better now. Hello.
Oh, yeah, good to have you on. So let's talk about September's fixtures. It's been a pretty dismal start to the season. Obviously 9 games gone, 5 defeats, 2 wins, 2 draws. We obviously the results, what being a 1-1 draw at Watford, a decent performance in the cup against Spurs, we're losing 2-1. Disappointing defeat followed that against Swansea, where we lose 2-1, and an even worse result 3-0 against Leeds. And then into October, a win against Blackburn 3-0, and a defeat obviously last time out against Sheffield Wednesday. Tiernan, the start of you, how do you sum up the situation at the club at the moment? Is Robins under intense pressure in your eyes, or do you think it's just too early to say, to sort of make a decision on that?
I would say Robins is under pressure at this point. My view on it is he's got the next 2 to 3 games to prove that he can turn this around. We don't really know where Doug King sits on whether or not Robins is his man, whether or not he deserves that time. Is he in love with our achievements over the past 5 or 6 seasons as much as the fans are? We've had, I think, the biggest sign of the acknowledgement from Mark himself that this isn't sustainable. That to me is telling us that he knows his job is currently under pressure right now. So I think the last few games have been inconsistent. Have ranged from encouraging to the downright hopeless, and it really depends on what we see over the next 2 to 3 games, possibly with a lot of it hinging on not necessarily the result, but the performance away at Preston. As we all know, points there do not come easy, particularly not for us. I think a draw there is not the worst result in the world, as long as it's coupled with a very good performance. Anything less than that, and it's going to be 2 games for me to win, or to possibly even to win well, but certainly to get at least 4 points from those 2. Otherwise, my gut feeling is that he will probably lose his job.
Cameron, what's your take on Mark Robins at the moment? Are you happy with him being our manager? Do you think he's a guy we should stick with? Obviously, you had a bad start of the season last year, as we all know, and form did pick up. Do you think you back Robins to turn things around?
My heart is telling me to back him at the moment because he's had this before, he's turned it around. And my heart's telling me, yes, back Robins, but my brain is telling me, is this potentially the end? Because years ago we had Sisu, we didn't have the same investment that we have had now. So I think now we've invested significantly more money. The tide has changed. That the job security is not going to be there anymore, and I do think that the form is going to have to turn around very quickly. Whether he loses his job the next few games, it obviously depends on results. To be honest, it's hard to say. I want him to turn it around. I'm just not sure if he will.
Is there an argument possibly, Tiernan, that with obviously announcement of all these coaches start of the season, obviously AD was dismissed, and obviously Dennis Lawrence went off to Minnesota. Do you think it's a case where maybe if you got rid of Mark Robbins now, it would kind of be, would it not be better to give an opportunity to work with the new coaches, to give them a bit of time for them to bed in, or do you think it's a bit too sort of late to sort of say that?
I don't think it's either late or early. I think you have a couple of issues potentially here in that when AD was at the club, Mark Robbins was on record as saying that they weren't friends off the field, and that they weren't afraid to tell each other what they thought. My gut feeling, and it's only a gut feeling, is that the new coaches that have come in have been brought in and been in awe of the job that Robbins has done with us up to this point, and more than likely have come into their roles knowing that, or in the belief that Robbins' opinion is sacrosanct. He's the boss. You don't question him. So we're watching games where we've got multiple coaches on iPads and nobody chatting to Robbins or shouting to him to make changes. I feel we've got a dynamic that maybe needs a bit of a reset. We need the coaches to feel a bit more empowered, to feel like they can make interventions. They can tell Mark Robbins exactly what's going wrong mid-game, particularly, which I think is a weakness of his. So if we got rid now, would you have a situation where the coaches are having to kind of get used to a new dynamic again, or do we get in a manager that wants their own people? Yeah, it's absolutely a dilemma we've got. Might we be better off sticking rather than twisting? Quite frankly, yes, but you don't know until it happens. I'm in the. I sit on the fence when it comes in Robbins out. I have the same sentiment as the vast majority of our fan base, but I get severely frustrated when I see inaction at pitch side when we don't make changes. When I see us setting up the same every game, just changing personnel rather than changing system, not preparing for the opponents, being quite stubborn. And that part of me wants to see Robbins out and we'd be better off with a reset, and that the coaches might be better getting used to a new manager rather than somebody who is king.
Yeah. Cameron, just a question here from Sky Blue Sam about obviously a lack of a number two. He asked, or she asked, I don't know, does Robbins need a clearly defined number two? I mean, do you think it's just a case of needing number two who could possibly challenge Robbins more, that might help to sort of get the results that we need?
Yeah, I think so. There's a load of new coaches. That can't be easy, but not having a number two definitely doesn't help because, as Tiernan referred to, you need your coaches, especially the assistant, to challenge Robbins, because no matter how good of a coach you are, it doesn't matter if you're Russell Slade or if you're Pep Guardiola, you are sometimes going to get it wrong, and you need the coaching staff to reel you in a bit and hang on, this is not going to work, this might work. Robbins gets a final say, as he should. He's the manager, but you need an assistant to challenge him, because if you're not challenged, then the same problems will keep occurring, especially if you're stubborn.
Yeah. Ben Watkins makes it point that he feels that Doug needs to back Robbins publicly ASAP. That can also be that's almost like that vote of confidence, or the dreaded vote of confidence, where it could lead to managers being sacked. I'm not always a fan of that, but I totally get the sentiment. Glems asks Tiernan, would Vivash and Lawrence fix our issues? I mean, I'll answer part of that question. Part of this bad run really started for me since Dennis Lawrence left the club. When we beat Wolves in the FA Cup, which was Dennis's last game, we were a good side. But then if you noticed after that, results really did start to tail off. I mean, the facts are we haven't won a game away from home since March. The home record has been pretty ropey as well. And AD Vivash was part of the backroom staff during that sort of bad run of last season. So, Tiernan, for you, if he had Dennis Lawrence and AD Vivash both available and they were back at the club, I know that's not going to happen, but do you think in theory things would be better if they were still there? I guess is the question.
I think I agree with you, Mark, in that I think Dennis Lawrence was the difference maker in terms of player development, in terms of getting what was happening on the training pitch out onto the field. But I do also think that just to bring it back to having somebody who Mark Robins will listen to, and somebody who will not be afraid to tell Mark Robins to make changes, to change shape, to do something differently, to bring a man off. I think having somebody like that in his ear is something that he's missed. Bringing them back in obviously isn't going to happen. Would it fix it were it to happen? Yes, I think it would. I think a stage where just the balance of power in the backroom staff, I think, is a little bit uneven. I think Mark Robins has got a lot more power and responsibility than he has had in previous seasons, despite the increase in coaching staff number. And I'm not so sure he sort of feels like he knows what he should be doing with it. So yeah, I would have somebody back in the 80 mold, not 80.
Of course, no. Obviously, we know about that side of things. A couple of questions, Cameron, from a couple of fans. Your average Coventry fan, or Cov fan, should I say, said that who would you bring in if Robins were to go? And Jeff leaves a comment about, in his opinion, if Robins goes, he worries about which manager who we could potentially get, and we could do even worse, end up in a relegation battle. So, if you're Doug King right now, Cameron, let's say the worst happens and Robins did go, who would you like to see come in potentially?
As people in the chat know, I follow a lot of Scottish football. One manager that is constantly popping in my head is Jimmy Tilleen, who has recently become the manager of Aberdeen. He's installed a sense of camaraderie into a squad with respect a lot of average players, but they have gone up a level and they have performed exceptionally well. They're currently with a 100% record since his arrival. They've won every single game. They've got a big game against Celtic on Saturday. If he can do that with average players, I just imagine potentially what he could do with players who've got some genuine ounce of quality that's not being maximised at the moment. And to answer Jeff's question, fears of being a relegation battle. If Robins is sacked, I totally get that. It's I think, if anything, it's the unknown that would scare fans the most. So I totally get why he would feel that way. And yeah, it could go both ways. Your season could completely transform or it gets worse. So I guess we'll find out if Robins ever goes.
I guess, Tier, looking at the slight, I'll say positive. I think this international break has come at a really good time for the players, and obviously we saw them saw the club post pictures of them with I think it's at the team F1 Haas team. Sorry for my pronunciation. I'm not an F1 expert, but the point I'm trying to make is it's good to see the players do something completely different away from football, a bit of team building, bonding, camaraderie, whatever you want to say. And it looked like they enjoyed themselves. And I think that's going to be critical now, the team spirit, isn't it? In the next few games is trying to, get to a point where the players start to understand each other and understand their roles, maybe. I don't know. But do you think the break has been a good thing for the club?
I think the fast would more than likely tell you that they would have rather had the opportunity to correct the Wednesday defeat as soon as possible and not have the time to dwell on it. But yeah, in terms of team building, team bonding, I do think that it'll have been a positive. We did similar around this time last season, if I'm not mistaken, where we had did we have Fads scoring sort of 999 in the punching machine, the boxing machine. I think that was the second international break last season as well. And the form improved shortly after that. It depends what what we do on the park. It depends on the personnel that we put out there. Hopefully, the one thing it does is I've had a feeling that there's been a few players sulking at the rotation. We've brought in a lot of players over the summer who are attack-minded, and the last thing any striker or any forward player wants to do is be sitting on the bench. It doesn't breed confidence. Strikers are good strikers are greedy by nature, selfish by nature, and they have to be. Each of them will think that the shirt should be theirs. So if this is given them a chance, maybe a couple of them who haven't been that happy at the opportunities or lack of, if it kind of brings them together as a closer knit unit, makes them understand that, you know, they're not wanting to get the shirt at each other's expense, but rather to take their opportunity and to play their part, then it'll be a massive positive.
Yeah. Looking at the games, Cameron, do you think? I mean, part of the problem I feel is Robins doesn't really know who his strongest 11 are. I mean, I take the point that hasn't been too many good performers this season. I'd probably say maybe Milan, Van Ivak, and maybe Jack Redoni have been probably our better players, and also Josh Eccles, I think, in midfield has been pretty good this season. Do you kind of feel for Mark Robins in that regard, or do you think he should be a bit more loyal to some players and you know, through thick and thin and sort of say, right, this is the team I want and this is who we're going to stick with? What's your thoughts on that?
I think the constant changes have actually been a massive part of the problem, a huge part of the problem, especially in the back four. I know, as you say, not a lot of them have covered themselves in much glory, but I think a big issue is the constant chopping and changing. It's made them very insecure about their position. You do one thing wrong and you're dropped. That doesn't help any player. So, in my personal opinion, I think you need to think of a back four, say that's Milan, Thomas, Binks, and Bidwell, for example. Stick with that for as much as you can and make that the hierarchy. And you do that, and I think you will see these players a lot more relaxed and maybe less mistake prone. And another issue is defensive. It's defensive midfield. It's just a massive, massive problem. Sheaf, when he's fully fit, I think he's one of the best players in the league, but he's not fully fit yet. Josh Eccles, I think Eccles does an excellent job. I think he's very underappreciated, but at the same time, I don't really view him as a number 6. So until we have a settled back four and another CDM to play with Sheaf, I think these struggles might continue.
And on that, on that basis, Tiernan, I mean, one of the policies that King has made is no loan players, not even looking at the free transfer market. Obviously, Matty James was potentially a player we could have looked at as well. I mean, does that concern you as well that Kings and Robins, I suppose more King, is got a very kind of strict policy about the loan market?
I think with King's looking at it with a business head on. I think he's inherited initially a threadbare squad that was so full of loans that he realised that he had to fork out a lot of money to kind of raise the floor. We weren't raising the ceiling after the playoff campaign 22-23, but we were raising the floor of the squad. And that outlay, albeit financed by Vic and Gus money, that outlay, I guess, is something that sort of maybe sits a bit like a spectre over him. He thinks, well, we can't get to that situation again. Not necessarily for himself, but for the club's financial footing, we always need to have saleable assets. That being said, the focus solely on saleable assets and particularly players with a potential for development and high resale value has meant we really lack an experience. But even dipping into like the Premier League rather, loan market, the players you're likely getting are in the mold of the players we have. A lot of the players are going to be young, raw, talented, but we've got plenty of those. So although we could have, I feel, gone for a few loans to plug gaps. I think that's not necessarily been the feeling over the summer transfer market wise. I think our summer window was derailed a little bit with being gazumped for Stamenic. Does seem a bit odd that we didn't seem to have a plan B when that fell through. But it was a bit perplexing to me that we didn't get a couple of older heads in, a couple of established championship players. I shan't mention a couple that I thought we should have gone for because they're other clubs' players now. But I feel like we could have gone for a couple of those types of players who could just old man other teams, sort of teach our younger players a little bit of game management, a little bit of the dark arts, stop us being too nice.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they would have come, the players that would have made a real difference to us would have come from the loan market, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I mean, Cameron, just wants to ask you an assessment of our sort of spending this summer. Obviously, we spent around £15.45 million as the exact currency. Obviously, Rudoni, Asante, Basset, Binks, Dovin, Borges, Rodriguez, the main incomings. I mean, I just feel as a squad where we're too top heavy with attacking players. We don't have enough, as you mentioned, not enough defensive cover. You can't always put all the blame on Robins. You've got to look at, the recruitment, the scouting. Dean Austin, obviously, the head of that. I mean, do you feel that it's been a pretty poor recruitment summer?
Yeah, 100%. You've got these players, as you say, with potential, or in Asante's case, proven pedigree. But you've had McFadzean, who left the club in January, wasn't replaced. You had Liam Kelly left over the summer, was not replaced. That experience, it doesn't matter who you bring in, you can't replace that level of experience. And last season, Sunderland made that same mistake. They had all these talented youngsters, but they finished around, I think it was 16th, because of that lack of experience. This summer, they corrected that, and they look like a very different team just because they've got experienced heads to guide these young players. And I think we've made that same mistake, and I really hope in January that mistake is rectified.
Yeah. Just got some comments from the audience. James Hollyoak, we've overpaid so much on new players. Stuart's point is we just haven't replaced the levers with players of similar potential.
I've got to say I disagree with both of those comments. I think the players we brought in, although you're never going to replace the like of Vic, who I see as potentially the world's second or third best striker right now. We have brought in quality that has raised our average skill level, our average quality level across the squad. Are we using them correctly? Do we have the right, as Cameron rightly said before, the right voices and the right sort of experience level in that dressing room in order to grind out and drive results? That's the bigger question for me. Yeah.
But I mean, I look at midfield. We obviously Liam Kelly obviously went on the free to Rotherham. We haven't replaced him. I don't think we've properly replaced Carl McFadzean. Okay, we've brought in a new goalkeeper in Oliver Van, but obviously he had a few games and now has been left out, and it just seems that, and really when you lose a couple of key players, then you're playing players out of position. You're back to kind of square pegs round holes scenario, and I think that's I agree. I think going forward we have replaced. I think Rudoni is a fairly adequate replacement for Callum O'Hare. I think he's a different type of player, but with Rudoni, I think set pieces we look at much more of a threat this season than we have in last season. And I think he's been a really good sign. I think he's a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 signing for me. So I think he's been good. Let's ask Mason Clark. I mean, do you think I'll go to Tin, I'll go to Cameron's thoughts after. Mason Clark, do you think he's been a bit? I mean, one or two comments say he's not quite ready for Championship.
Yeah, and
he's playing out of position, maybe, and had you right? be a factor?
I absolutely think he's played very few minutes in his natural position, and when he has, he's shone. Quite frankly, I did the question before that, the comment before that we might have overpaid for a significant number of players. It's not bypassed me that a lot of sort of our fan base on Twitter have been singling out EMC for criticism over his fee, criticism over the hype, and the performance levels not matching the hype. I've been quite severely frustrated with seeing him played on the right predominantly, where he's done okay, quite frankly. He has a couple of assists from the right-hand side. He sometimes on the right-hand side doesn't pass the eye test. It looks like he's not quite natural there, like he's not comfortable taking his man on. But having watched him extensively for Peterborough in the second half of last season, his strengths were getting early ball into the left channel, holding it up, or cutting inside immediately and driving for goal. His muscle memory will have him drive on the outside of his right foot every time he gets that ball. If he's isolated sort of out on the right wing, he's going to drive himself towards the corner flag, and he's just going to whip a cross in. And unfortunately, we tend not to have players arriving in the box late for that to be a tactic, because our team are used to Tatsu being on that side, which means that he either cuts the ball to the edge of the square with his right foot, or he cuts back onto his left, and players arrive late and static. I think he's got time to grow into the role on the left. I would, at the moment, advocate getting Haji Wright back up top. I would have him and Bassett sort of having a bit of a rotation for now, and I would get EMC onto the left, and I would make that shirt his. The one criticism I have of him is that he looks like a player that thinks his teammates are better than him right now. Every time he gets the ball, he's looking at somebody else to lay the ball off to, when he was kind of one of the main guys at Peterborough. I think we need our coaches, Mark Robbins, and the fans need to kind of make him feel like he's one of our top talents, which I really do think he is, and I don't think we've overpaid for him.
I think it's lack of confidence. I think maybe he just needs a goal, maybe, or a good cross which leads to a goal, and I think then hopefully we'll see the best of him. But I tend to agree that's him. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. Cameron, what's your thoughts on Ephraim Mason-Clark? Do you think we just need to be a bit more patient with him?
Yeah, I think there is something there, and I think when you pay that much money for someone, for 4.5 million, it's a lot of money for a club like us. But then you play him on the opposite flank, which he doesn't do very often. I think you set him up to fail when you do that. So as Tiernan said, I think he needs a run of games on that left hand side. That's his position. Okay, Haji plays there, but Haji, when he wants to, he's unplayable. He's one of the best He's one of the best attackers in the league when he wants to be. But that's not always there at the moment. Ephraim Mason-Clark, he's come through the leagues. He's hungry. He's determined to impress. I just think he needs that reassurance from management and the players that you're one of us now. Express yourself and be the best version of yourself that you can be. At the moment, I think he's being heavily shackled.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Haji Wright, obviously, last time out, played the full 90 against Sheffield Wednesday. I don't know how, because I thought he was an absolute disgrace that game. I thought it was shocking. But Haji Wright last season, statistically, did score 19 goals, 20 goals. He provided a few assists, although he did reasonably well. But my biggest bugbear with Haji Wright is his defensive work is really poor. Doesn't track back. Just feels like he's a bit lazy. It just doesn't work hard enough for the team. And I think my thought is, I think Haji Wright he's playing that position just purely because of what he did last season, and he did a reasonable job. But I feel that he hasn't. There's more to come. He hasn't done as I think he just frustrates me. Is my genuine feeling, and I feel a little bit sorry for Ephron Mason Clark because, as you say, I don't think he's been playing his proper position, and we haven't really. I think we need to be a bit more patient with him. So that's just my view on him. I just feel Haji Wright up front. He has played up front, but he hasn't been as effective. I mean, maybe we just need to give him more of a go. But another interesting thing that Glenn mentioned about was Norman Bissett played for the 21s tonight. And I think he got a 30-minute hat trick. So that bodes well. I mean, where do you stand, Tim, on the striking situation looking at Saturday? If you're Mark Robins right now, Preston away, you've got Ellis Sims, you've got, you say Haji Wright could play up front, you've got Bissett, you've got Asante who can play up front. I mean, how would you set the team up, let's say, for Saturday?
I set the team up against Preston with a couple of things in mind. We are likely to have a couple of players who are fairly likely to get themselves in trouble early, given what happened in the 3-0 defeat at the CBS last season. I think Haji Wright is chief amongst those. I could see Haji Wright starting that game and getting sent off within the first 15 minutes, quite frankly. That, and he's been on international duty. He's going to get back late. He's not been part of the team building exercises with the squad. I sit him out of this game coming. I look as well at the setup that Preston have been playing the last 3 or 4. They had a poor start to the season, but they have solidified. They've tightened up at the back, and they are really quite capable of doing what Norwich have done to us, what Wednesday did to us, which is just staying really, really compact, winning second ball in midfield when our attacks break down and hitting us on the break. I think we need to play with that in mind. I think we need to potentially pack out that midfield. And I'm going to say something quite controversial. I think we need to abandon the 4-2-3-1 system for this game, quite frankly. I think we need to have... I would start Bissett. I would start him next to Ellis Sims in this game, and I would leave a more sort of flexible midfield system behind them. I would have on the team sheet, just as a red herring, I would have give the impression maybe that Rudoni or EMC were playing as a third forward, but in reality have them sitting in midfield.
Yeah.
Now, in an ideal world, we'd pack out the centre in midfield, but we're unlikely to have the bodies for that. With Eccles potentially carrying a knock from Wednesday, with Allen still recovering, with Torp still not seeming like he's fit enough to play a full 90, even 9 games in. So I would go with Bissett and Sims, maybe playing a little deeper, just allowing Sims to not track back quite as much, but having Sims and EMC dictate when to press high as a unit.
Yeah. What's your take, Cameron, on sort of Saturday? How would you sort of set the team up if you're Mark Robins?
First order of business, I think, is a back three. I don't like the idea of being a possession-based team. I don't think it suits us whatsoever. We've got plenty of pacey mid-attack. If you do a counter-attacking setup, I think you can utilise that really well. A back three of Thomas, Louis Binks, and one of Latty or Kitching. In midfield, I think you have a 4. You've got Milan, Milan at right wing back, De Silva at left wing back. Then you have Sheaf and Eccles in there. Rudoni or Ephraim Mason Clark potentially in the number 10 role, or make them think it's a number 10 role, but maybe they're sitting back as well, expect to do defensive duties. And then you have Bissett up front with either Ellis Sims or Haji Wright. Let Preston have majority of the ball and try and hurt them on the counter attack.
Because I noticed that Preston tend to play 5 in midfield in their games as well. I mean, do you think Robins could? You feel like we don't have the bodies to play 5 in midfield? Do you think like the example away game at Watford, we played 5 at the back for that game, sort of 5-3-2. Do you think that's something that Robins may look at?
I think that's what we'll have to go down the route of. So the Swansea game, Swansea played a very similar system to what Preston are going to play and have been playing. And for all we had a couple of players not turn up that game, it was really, really obvious that our fullbacks were getting overloaded in a 3-on-1 on both sides. So not only were they having 5 in midfield, but they were also having their sort of striker drop and make sort of an attacking passing triangle, isolating our fullbacks in the space between the fullbacks and the centre back on each side. It was really obvious to me from about the second or third minute. And it just frustrated me when all we did was sub off Haji at half time. Yes, he was poor, but it was the shape that was the problem and the setup that was the problem. But I agree with Cam. I don't think we need to go into this game thinking like we have to dictate the tempo or to have a majority of possession. I don't think, having watched Preston, I don't think if you let them have the ball that they know what to do with it, quite frankly. I think they have one way of playing, that's packing out the midfield and dropping deep as a unit, nicking the ball when the ball comes loose, and when an attack breaks down, and then playing it into the channels and hoping that their forward players are able to hold it up enough for their midfield to form part of the break. And I can see that happening again unless we change shape for this game. And I'm with Cam. We have the bodies not to pack out the centre of midfield, but to be a bit cleverer about how we deploy players in other positions on the pitch. If we do go 4-2-3-1 again, which is becoming to me a little bit like playing a game of rock, scissors, paper, and always playing the every single time. I think if we do that, we're going to have sort of a Pep Guardiola-esque joining in midfield of one of the two fullbacks, or at the very least, and sort of an inverted fullback on whichever side we have in possession, so that we can cover the space in the channel just in front of the space in between our fullback and our centre back, just in front of them, because that's where we're getting balls pinged into and getting hurt pretty much every game.
It's for me, it's the press, isn't it? I mean, I looked at, like, you look at the Swansea game, for example, the first 30 minutes, we were 2-0 down because we just couldn't play through the press. And that seems to be a common theme in a lot of our games, isn't it?
We couldn't play out from the press. We're not blessed with the right personnel to be playing sort of right out from the back. Dovin, fantastic with the ball at his feet. Thomas needs a touch before he makes a pass. Binks doesn't. Latibodia doesn't necessarily, but he has to stand square to the ball, which means he can't release instinctive quick ball. He has to sort of turn and face. He telegraphs what he does. So it makes us a little bit easy to be pressed high. And it's almost as if we've been coached or told not to play it long when we run out of options. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to play it pretty to pick up points. It's almost as if we're kind of trying to play to the moral high ground. Like, yeah, we're not going to play ugly football. We're going to try and play the right way. And if we lose, we lose. But not for me. Yeah, but in that game, we had an issue in that an awful lot of fans criticising our midfield and our defenders for not pressing quicker for certainly for Swansea's second goal in that game.
Yeah.
The problem we had is the overload. If either Milan or Eccles on that side had gone to press the man in possession, they are in effect taking themselves out of the defensive unit, because they would have immediately been bypassed by the passing triangle.
Yeah.
And that's when we need our coaching staff to really earn their keep, see what's going on, and just make subtle changes to shape. But we don't seem to do it.
No. I've got a couple of comments here from our audience. Alan Arkins said that he would have Asante and Bassett starting up front this weekend. Dropping Eccles not good enough. Give Torp a chance to field alongside Sheaford, Donny, Mason Clark, and have Doven in goal. Personally speaking, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd have Asante and Bassett up front. I think they're both, good players individually, but I'm not sure they work as well in tandem. I personally would like to see. I mean, I would probably go Ellis Sims and probably go Bassett up front. Maybe it would be my two, because I want someone, a big holding player like a Sims, and someone like a Bassett. Obviously scored a few goals tonight. I'll take it. I know it's the 23s, but at least he goes to the game with some minutes under his belt and a bit of confidence. So that's what my thinking would be. But having said that, I think Asante has done okay for me. He hasn't done too badly. One more comment from Glenn about, he feels that our weaknesses are struggling to break down teams who sit deep and flood the midfield with bodies, and anyone who with a higher press against us is often successful. I mean, Cam, do you anticipate Preston will sort of set up to sort of press us pretty high on Saturday?
Yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that is the case. Preston at home, Preston at home last year, didn't they do something similar? Just physically bullied us out of the game. Our most creative outlet, well, they injured him and took him out of the game for months. So
yes, correct.
I wouldn't be surprised if they try and do that again. I just want us to try and combat that, because I think, as Tierney referred, we're just too kind, and I really don't like the kindness. I want us to be mean. If they're going to be mean back. If say Ben Whiteman sticks a nasty tackle on Sakamoto, someone later on stick a tackle on him back. Just show that, okay, you want to be physical, but just know that you're in for a game.
Well, I mean, I remember the Blackburn game, funny enough, when we won, and I think Josh Eccles did a naughty tackle off the ball, I think, from memory in the second half. So we have got it in us to be a bit, the dark arts, as we, say. Is Sakamoto definitely injured for this game? I just wasn't too sure what his situation was, or is he potentially back?
I think there's a deliberate sort of non-announcement of that, I think, to keep the opposition guessing. He's pictures of him today training back on the grass with no sign of any bruising, scarring, of any sign of that wound he sustained against Blackburn. Does that mean he's without any sort of damage? Probably not. Do you start him in that game anyway, knowing that he might be targeted by Preston as a physical weak link? Granted, Preston are no longer a low side, but I think the majority of the personnel were there last season, and I think they'll single him out for some roughhouse treatment. I probably don't start BTA on that side. I would advocate a change in shape anyway, but if we're going to go a 4-2-3-1, I would actually go controversial and have Bassett on the right, coming in on his left foot, which he has done previously. Not for us, but he has done previously in his career to a fair degree of success. He's quite direct. We've got Tats, who tends to get the ball, hold up, try and turn inside. But Bassett is more of a he's going to cut in and drive straight to goal. I think he'll if he starts there, he creates problems. I wouldn't start Tats. As for dropping Eccles, as Alan said. I think the stats bear out from our start to the season that Eccles has it's not even close. He's been our best player, barring Rodoni. So you can't drop him, notwithstanding the fact that we don't have the personnel to drop him. Quite frankly, I think we have too many players joining attacks when I think we should have a bit more of a flat three. If we want to pack that midfield out against five, I think Rodoni has to play as an 8. Yeah. He has to play fairly flat with Sheaf and Eccles, or if Torp starts. And I think he's got to be the one that makes those quick counters. He's going to be the one that carries the ball in those quick breaks, that the likes of Eccles or Sheaf looks for him as an outlet into space, not into feet, but into space, so he can get attacks moving quickly.
Yeah, fair enough.
On the point of Eccles saying he's not good enough, I strongly disagree with that. I think honestly this season he's probably the only player who I think at some point this season I think, okay, they let me down at this point. I honestly can't say he has. We've struggled, yes, but I think he's been excellent. He's been there, getting the tackles, intercepting the ball, recovering loose balls, recoveries. I think he's averaged 7.86 recoveries per 90, which I think is the highest in the squad.
Yeah,
and I think if you take Eccles out of that team, I think our flaws just multiply. I think you need Eccles in that team. For me, he's a first name on the team sheet, and with the current personnel, should even be captain.
Well, this is it, Cam, because he has been captain, hasn't he? I think when Sheaf was injured, and I think for me, he's a future captain of the club. He loves the club. Obviously, he signed the contract, I think, last season. I totally agree. I think his defensive work is really good. He does track back pretty well and put tackles in. And yeah, I think arguably he's been our most improved player this season. Some may say our supposed player of the 9 games this season, but I think he's done well. And I hear comments and I sit at games from people behind me and whinging about Eccles, but I think it's complete and utter nonsense as far as I'm concerned. I think he's been really good.
I think I think the problem is with Eccles, they expect him to be like a Hamer or be like a Sheaf. You're asking him to do something that he's not. Hamer and Sheaf, quite frankly, I think, how on earth are they in the championship? But Eccles, he's already a very good championship midfielder, but he's not either of them players. He's his own man, and I think he should be his own man. And I think we should not be expecting him to do jobs that he doesn't expertise in doing. He should be doing his own thing, and I think he does that really well.
Yeah, Tim.
I'm just going, bringing Cameron's point on a little bit. Eccles now is the same age that Gus was when he came to the club, and he's shown signs of it. And he doesn't get the credit for some of the good passing work that he does. A lot of what he does is short, simple, crisp. But that's what we're coached to do. That's what you hear being shouted from the sideline. To keep the ball, dictate the play, to play short to feet. It's what we've been doing as a team. But when you've looked at some of the passes that have been sort of a bit more direct, that have been successful over not just the start of this campaign, but the tail end of last campaign, his range of medium to long passing has been absolutely sensational. The pass over the top for Haji Wright to score against Leeds last season was nothing short of absolutely exquisite. He's had one of those against Blackburn, where he's hit sort of an angle ball in behind the fullback. He's done it in the Norwich game. He's done it in the Cup game as well against Oxford, yellow, against Oxford United. And his attacking work goes unheralded. The game against Watford last season, where we beat them 2-1, he made both goals. He was brought down for the penalty. He was playing right wing back in that game, if I remember rightly. We'd gone we were playing, I think, 3 at the back in that game. and he skipped round 3 men and squared it to Hadji for our second goal. He doesn't get the credit, and he should do. I really think he is our most valuable player in the squad. Not necessarily in terms of how much he's getting paid, contracted, how much of a fee we'll get for him. Because quite frankly, I hope he doesn't leave ever. But in terms of kind of being the sort of material that binds the rest of the team together, I think he has that capability. And I think if he's not in there, I think he means more to us than Ben Sheaf does. And that's not a slight on Sheaf.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I still think Ben Sheaf's our most important player at the football club, though. But I think Eccles has really immersed himself really well with the way he's playing, and I think that they look a decent combination midfield. But there are times I feel where we do make. This is what annoys me. What's frustrating in some games is we do make just individual mistakes, and that's what's costing us goals. I feel. Take the last game out against Sheffield Wednesday. The weak header from Kitchen, which 2 passes later is in the back of the net, and then we lose possession, which then leads to their winner. I mean, is that something that concerns you guys about just how easily we lose possession as a team? Because I feel that's what's hurting us at the moment.
As I referred to earlier, I just think the constant changing, I think, is part of the course of that.
Yeah.
I won't excuse Kitching's mistake against Wednesday. That was an inexcusable mistake, but I think it is a product of constantly chopping and changing, which is making these players insecure, and they're not as relaxed and as composed that they could be if there was like a constant hierarchy of the lineup.
Yeah.
The Kitching mistake is not a good one. It's not a good optic at all against Wednesday. The thing is, the people who would have him out of the team quickly would replace him with Binks, who made almost a carbon copy mistake against that gifted Oxford a goal. So it's easy to, particularly when your concentration levels are stretched a little bit. You spend a lot of time with the ball in attack, particularly if you're playing sort of fairly slow, patient, possession-based football. It's really difficult to keep kind of one eye on what's likely to come back at you and read the game. And I think that's really where our defensive units struggle. And it's the reading of the game, it's the anticipation. And for me, that's not fault on an individual level. That's coaching. I think we can iron that out with good training, good coaching.
Fair enough. Okay, I've just got turn our attention to the next 3 games. Obviously, we know about Preston. We've got QPR midweek and then Luton. Let's go to you, Tim. How many points do you think we can get in our next 3 games?
How many points can we get? I think 5 or 6 we can. My gut feeling says we'll get 4. I think we're probably unlikely to get much change out of Preston, if I'm honest. Loftus Road's been a fairly happy hunting ground, but I'm only going to go for a point on that one. And I think we smash Luton. I think if it is going to be El Sacchio, I think we keep ours, they lose theirs in that one.
Interesting. Well, Rob Edwards, I think, has signed a 4-year contract as well at Luton, so that would be a big payoff if he does get sacked. Which would be interesting. But anyway, Cam, how do you sort of see the next 3 games?
Preston on Saturday. I don't think any trends are going to be bucked. I think that's going to be a comfortable 2-0 win for for Preston. I'm not confident in that whatsoever. QPR, as Tiernan said, it's happy hunting ground. I don't know really how they're doing this season. They're struggling like us, so that's another 6-pointer. Wow, all of our next games are 6-pointers. I think we turn over QPR. I think we grind out a 1-0 win, and I think Luton at home is going to be a bored 0-0 draw.
Yeah, I think
I don't see any goals being scored against Luton.
I think the most we'll get is 5 out of the 9 points. I know I know Danny, he might be this has gone for a 3-1 Cov win, but Cameron's got a bad connection, I think. I think a point for me at Preston is the most we would get, but realistically, I think we're going to lose 3-1. I think we could win at QPR, as you mentioned, Tim, and we've got recent results seem to be positive, and I think we can get a win there at QPR. They're having a poor season like ourselves so far, but I think we can go there and turn them over. Luton is an interesting one. They've not had the season that everyone would expect them to have. I still think they will. The most we'll get from there is a draw, because I'm concerned about the home game. I just feel like we make every game. It feels like we make individual mistakes. It feels like week in, week out, and that's what worries me about us at the moment. And I just hope we can just turn it around. We just need something to sort of light the fire, because I think what made me angry about the Wednesday result was the fact we came off a really good win against Blackburn, and then we put in. Okay, well, I wouldn't say it was a terrible performance Sheffield Wednesday. We were good in places, but the difference was we paid the price for individual mistakes, and that's something we have to cut out of our game.
We did. Our individual mistakes really the crux of it. Yeah, we've given away one soft goal and one goal we could have prevented. No, maybe we'll not call the second one soft, but we could have cut it out. I'm not so sure individual mistakes are the problem. No, we've had a really good result at Blackburn, largely because there were the way that Blackburn pressed and the way their players set up just quite frankly suited us. We were able to take one or two touches, and when we were in possession, we were able to look at where we were going to spray the ball to. Once we got that first goal as well, which is a set piece, which is good to see. We've had a couple this season, but once we got that first goal, we didn't look like we were going to do anything but win in that game. This sort of the half spaces in between there, Blackburn's units were they were enough for us to play through. Quite frankly, Wednesday set up Danny Rowe. If he does nothing else, he makes sure his players know how to set up and what they're doing. They might not be, great personnel wise. They have maybe 2 or 3 players that have, but they were well drilled. That I don't think that, as you say, it wasn't a bad performance. I don't think it was anything to do with our defeat. It was anything to do with effort or application. I think the way that Wednesday set up really benefited them. Danny Rowe had done his homework on how we play, and there were periods of that game where if a ball bobbled free as a 50-50, you knew there was a Wednesday shirt coming away with that ball, and it wasn't because they wanted it more, it's because they were very switched on to what we were likely to be doing, where we would be in transition. I wish we would do that and prepare and tailor our tactics to our opposition rather than playing the same shape every game and being sort of pig-headed enough to think that we should win that game of football because we've got better players in the opposition. That's not how things work.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, going to show on a positive note. We are winning 8-0 the under-23, so every cloud has a silver lining. So there you go.
Has Bissett got 5?
I think he's got 4. I think, and an assist.
Nice.
So, yeah, pretty quiet night's work for him. Final word with you, Cameron. Do you think we're going to turn it around? That's my last question. Do you think we can do it?
I honestly don't know, but for being optimistic's sake, history says we will, so we're going to do it.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. We're going to show on a positive note, and that's what I like to hear. So thanks, Tin and Cameron, for coming on tonight. It's been really good hearing your thoughts on the current ongoings with the club. Obviously, we'll hope that results change in a positive light starting on Saturday. I think Tin and I are going up, so it'd be nice to see Tin on the Saturday. Hopefully, we get a bit of the rub of the green. Excuse my joke there, and hopefully we'll get that win.
I've not attended an away win for 21 years.
Oh, really? Oh,
so you're cursed.
Yeah, you're cursed.
I said that with the Swansea game, though. I'd not attended a home defeat for ever before that. So this could just be a year of bucking of trends.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully the rubber green and all that, and we'll get that win. I think the last game I went up north was Middlesbrough, and we won in the playoff semi-final. So, well, I did go to Stoke. Technically, that is up north, but we lost 1-0 at the start of the season. So, I'm just hoping we can get a positive result and a win. But I'm not that optimistic deep down. But I'm their Ram. I'm usually still on the fence, but I'm going off the fence. Unfortunately, I'm going the other way, going for a home win. Unfortunately, so I'm hoping I'm wrong and. I've got egg on my face, so let's see what happens. But thanks, guys. Thanks for your comments tonight, everyone. We've got a preview show tomorrow with the Preston podcast with Stuart and I. We've got Preston fan on from the Butter Pie podcast, so that'll be broadcasted tomorrow or published tomorrow evening. And obviously, we've got the Sunday Space Show on X. So if you're a user on X. Please come and join us on the All Things Sky Blue X Space Show. Hope if you like what you like our channel, please like and subscribe us. We're always welcome new subscribers to our channel. Thanks for listening and play up Sky Blues. Speak to you soon.